Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we're going to talk about the top 5 things that you need to know about becoming a leader. And we've got our famous guest on with us, Scott Allen. Scott Allen, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. Good to be back. I always love our conversations. I really do.
You know, it's fun because I think your energy that you bring really is clear, and it gives the young entrepreneur, the young leader, some real insight on some great steps to take to becoming a leader. And I think it's really important to give us some things that are workable.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. I think we can, and I spent a lot of years talking about the theory and the philosophy of leadership, but actual actionable items we can do today and we should have on our radar today, that's where my heart sings. That's the conversation I love to have. So I'm in. Let's do it.
So, you know, I don't know that as a young entrepreneur, I could hear what we're about to talk to, right? So if you young folks that are out there that are listening, or even people around, I would tell you that I came from like I was stubborn. I knew all, and maybe even from a place of I'm going to do it different. So I think that there's something as I look backwards. I think what we're trying to do today is say, hey, look, based on my experience and Scott's experience, here are a couple of things that if you pay attention, that really may support you in leapfrogging quicker this path of leadership. And I think it'd be insightful, right? I don't know this the end all. I think you'll create your own path, but I think what Scott's going to talk about today, certainly, you know, you could skip the school of hard knocks, maybe not completely, but it'll help shortstop that growth. So I think these are some great ideas.
Hopefully, right?
Yeah, right. I think so. I think they, you know, everybody has to go through a little bit of their challenges, Scott, right? Yep. A little bit.
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%. Right. Is it no pressure, no diamonds? Right. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Like somehow or another, the pecking your way out of the shell, the problems that we have ultimately teach us how to, you know, get the, you know, blood in the wings to teach us to fly. And I don't know that I could see that. Look, I've had enough gifts of learning that I'd love to make it easier. And I hope that's what some of the stuff here does that we're talking about, because your steps are really, they're really clear. And I think as you start to, I don't know you'll ever do them perfect, right? I think these are principles that you practice, right? As opposed to they're not going to, you're never going to be perfect at them.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Oh, 100%. I think these are guidelines, these are considerations. And I love how you framed that up, that, you know, hopefully as you take this in, even I think this is appropriate for anyone who's in a position of leadership now, but especially if someone aspires to leadership someday, this, like you said, it can help circumvent some heartaches, ease some of the heartaches and some of the pain. And as you're pecking out of the shell, maybe you'll get out a little more quickly.
Right. So I think that's kind of fun. So let's jump right into it and start looking at what are the steps we need to start looking at as we develop our leadership skills?
Yeah. Well, okay. So it's a great question, and it's a fun conversation. I've spent probably 20 years studying the topic of leader development. Just came up with a resource really about this topic right here that I have on my website. And it's really about, it's called Preparing to Lead. If you want to lead others, what are the things you need to have on your radar to make sure you're the best possible version of you when they show up, right? And we know what it feels like to be in the presence of a great leader. We know what it feels like to be in the presence of a leader who's really struggling to do that work well. And it's two totally different worlds. And at least according to the research of Gallup, 60%, or actually 70% of how I experience the organization is my direct supervisor. So that's a huge influence. If we are putting people in positions of authority and they aren't prepared to do that work well, it's causing damage. It's damaging our culture. It's damaging those individuals because they're having a crappy experience. And as you and I both know, leadership is incredibly difficult. It's not easy. It's incredibly difficult to do it well. So what do we need to have on our radar as we prepare to lead? But again, for listeners who are already in a position of leadership, all of these apply the exact same. So don't discredit the conversation if you're a leader today.
I think that's right on there. You know, and I feel like leadership skills are very similar. A lot of what we're going to talk about are life skills, right? There's a lot of stuff that's in there,
Yep.
and they come and go in waves, right? There's days when, I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, and there's times when I can look back and people go, yeah, he was a terrible leader. And there's times where people look back and go, man, he really inspired me. And there's times when I could say the same thing about myself.
Yep.
Right along the whole way, right? The trudging the road, carrying the group, moving the mountains, all of that comes with ebbs and tides of it. And I think what we're trying to get to are some distillation of some of the knowledge, some of the things where these are some things that might help make that a little bit easier for you to see, or at least it makes it easier for me to see, like when things aren't going the way I want them to go, or things aren't working out, I can go back to these practices and go,
Yes.
all right, let's go look here. I don't feel like my team or my group is moving the way I want to move them, because that's ultimately what we're doing as leaders, right? Aren't we ultimately moving an idea? We're taking, leadership is really about taking an idea and moving it forward. Yeah. Right. What does it really mean to be a leader?
Yeah. So one way that I think about how to define it, the process of influencing others toward a common vision. The process of influencing others toward a common vision. I might have a position of authority, but do I have to use my authority, say things like, I'm the boss? And if that's coming out of your mouth, you've already lost. But can I use myself as a tool to mobilize, inspire, engage, energize others toward a place that they value as well? Help provide meaning, purpose to the work. And so I think for me, again, it's easy to say those words, the process of influencing others toward a common vision, but it's incredibly difficult to do that work well, to use myself as an instrument to help create that with others. So that's one way I think about actually the activity of leading others. It's all about influence. Now, I don't have to have a title or a position of authority to have influence. I can be influencing my children. So this is happening at home for those of the listeners who have children and kids or grandchildren. So this is happening in all aspects of our life. And some people are doing it really well. Again, some people struggle to do that. So if you aspire to lead or you are leading, there's 5 or 6 things I would really want you to have on your radar daily as important and really, really, really critical elements to check in with if you want to be successful in the work.
Well, let's talk about this. So great leaders, I think, often are, it emanates in multiple places in your life, right? Mm-hmm. Right. Great leaders, these skills emanate in both my business life, my family life, my physical life, and my eating life, right? I mean, they're my spiritual life, right? These things we're going to talk about it's kind of like I do the work here and it emanates across all those other components of my life. Is that, kind of what I'm hearing?
Yes. Oh, 100%. 100%. I mean, I think so much of this can come back to, are you a healthy human? And what are the dimensions of being a healthy human? I mean, so even as you listen to what I'm going to talk about today, it comes back to, if you're a healthy human, there's a gentleman I had on my podcast named Peter Ray, and he wrote a book called Better Humans, Better Performance, right? If you're just a whole person spiritually, from a health perspective, from a knowledge and mental health perspective, the more whole you are, the more of yourself you can bring to the role. And I think that's the conversation that I love having, because if we have a person who's doing well themselves and bringing their best version of self to the table, it's more likely they're going to be successful. So, yeah, you want to jump in? You want to hear?
Let's go right ahead. Let's go right ahead.
So cool. Yeah. Okay. So number one, if you want to lead, and this is something that you aspire to do, I think there's this really, really cool branch of kind of writing called motivation to lead. Like, what is your motivation? Why do you want to lead? And there's a very, very easy phrase here. Is it all about me, or is it all about we? If you're choosing to lead, if you're choosing to take on that path, you have to enjoy people. That's like kind of important, because you're going to be immersed in people. The work is going to change. You're no longer a master carpenter working with maple and pine. You are working with human beings and all of the adventures that come with a group of human beings. And so I think, is your motivation solely your progress, solely your career, solely your advancement? Or are you really doing it with a mindset of, I want to build a team, I want to be Phil Jackson, I want to be John Wooden, I want to be Pat Summitt, I want to elevate others and guide and coach? And so I think this is a very, very important thing. I did work in a lot of different industries, and you have the person who is in accounting, and then they know that to become a partner, they're going to have to lead others, but they're really not interested in leading others. They don't really like that work. They'd rather do the investigation. They'd rather sit with the spreadsheet behind a computer rather than engage with the others all day long. So I think that motivation to lead, why do I want to lead, is incredibly important. And on a couple dimensions. A, is it just about me? And if so, that will be found out very quickly. You've worked for that individual somewhere along the way where it was just about them and their career and their progress, and they really didn't care about people. But then also you've worked with that individual where they maybe weren't energized by actually developing, growing, like developing human beings. So motivation to lead, that's number one.
Well, so that's good. I think that's in that realm right there. I think there's more to that. I've noticed throughout my life, like maybe in my early leadership, and I wonder if most entrepreneurs or leaders kind of go through this, in that the beginning part of that is solving a problem within us. Is the ultimate leader trying to prove to themselves and to the world a story? Right. I mean, like I would somewhat justify my early leadership skills. That one was about me, right? Yeah. About me showing the world who I am, right? Maybe justifying my existence, yeah. Justifying my manhood. And you're right. My ability to care for others wasn't in that conversation because I was trying to prove something. Maybe, look, I didn't go to college. I was trying to, that was my college education. Yep. So a lot of who I was, the leader of this company. And I got some fulfillment out of being that man.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, right. So there was some value to that. And maybe I looked over and said, well, maybe there's a lot of dead bodies behind me. Maybe the company was successful, but there's some dead bodies there. And then once I kind of got that answered, maybe even you could get into Freud or in any of the philosophers and go, all right, what is it? The young Anthony, the shadow me, and all that kind of good work that I've done. And once you kind of notice that and go, oh, all right, now you start to look at it's not very fulfilling anymore. Yeah. Now, how do I start to build humans? Yes. Right? How do I show up here to build the human beings that it takes? Because that's not always easy, right? Because leadership for humans can sometimes come with a mess as well. Because dealing with human beings, they show up at the office, every one of them brings into them their life, and in today's now world, there's a lot going to that. So, not only are you the builder of a company, but you're also a therapist and a coach, and it comes with a whole bunch of other skills that take a little bit of practice.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and so you mentioned a couple things in there that were really, really important. It's actually the second one. So what are my motivations? And to your point, early in my career, it may be a little bit more about me. And I don't think I think that could be natural. It could be about me finding my purpose, meaning my place in the universe and on earth, and what it is I'm supposed to do. So that can be a time that is more kind of consumed by self. But as soon as you step into a position of leadership, you are other oriented. Hopefully you are thinking of others and you're transitioning, as you kind of beautifully mentioned. And so the second one in this conversation is, who are your thinking partners? Now, this is critical. This is absolutely critical, because you know more than anyone else that leadership is incredibly difficult. Building a company is incredibly difficult. So who are those individuals that you can turn to? Now, these could be mentors. It could be a therapist, just like you said. It could be individuals that are colleagues in other industries, like a mastermind or some type of group that you're a member of that helps you connect with others who are also building businesses and staying in a place of kind of problem solution orientation. But this is critical, because you go to bed at night, Anthony, with a whole bunch more on your plate metaphorically in your head than everyone else in the organization. There's a lot of stress there. There's a lot of unanswered questions. There's a lot of complexity that you're navigating on multiple fronts. So who are those individuals helping you be the best possible version of you? Who is your coach? It could be a coach. So for instance, a couple examples from my life, and I'm not putting this on any listeners. I'm just sharing with you kind of my recipe. So I have a therapist, and I've seen him for 17 years. And before that, I had another gentleman that I saw for 5 years. And every 2 weeks, I go on a walk, and Phil helps me be a better version of myself, helps me make sense of what's going on in my world, helps me uncover some of the rocks that, what are some of those maybe shadow side of Scott, and why am I showing up this way, and what's behind this behavior? So I have a trained expert to help me better understand me. I also have a mentor. And I go on a walk every 2 weeks, and I talk with Gary, and we have a conversation. And he's a former CEO. He's an expert in leadership, very well read. And I can bring all kinds of conversations to the table with Gary. I also have some colleagues. I just transitioned out of full-time academia, and those are individuals that I tapped. And I said, hey, what advice do you have for me? What do you think? What should I have on my radar? And of course, none of these people had answers for me. But they're individuals where I can get things out of my head, and they can help me make sense of what's going on. But as soon as you take on a position of leadership, I'm talking with a leader today at 12:30, and she has a lot of complexity on her hands. I won't have answers for her, but hopefully for that half hour, I can be a sounding board, and I can help her make sense of it. So who are your thinking partners? And this is really important, this last little piece here. These aren't people that you're just bitching and commiserating with and complaining with.
That's right.
These are individuals that are proactively helping you become a better version of you, helping you proactively problem solve, and helping you you said something super wise early in the episode. What do I own in the dysfunction right now? What do I own and not getting the results that I'm hoping we would achieve? Oftentimes I own some of that. So these are individuals who can help you explore you, will ask the tough questions, and ultimately help you mature and see kind of the world from a different lens. And so those thinking partners, they're worth their weight in gold. A lot of leaders don't prioritize that time. And I think it's tragic that they don't prioritize that time. That's like any world-class athlete never turning to someone for coaching. It's just silly.
That finding someone you can trust that is not your drinking partner.
Yeah.
What I'm definitely not looking for in that relationship is someone who co-signs my crap.
Yeah.
Right. There are plenty of those people on the planet in my office. That just here. I want someone to hold me, who holds me accountable and is going to hold me accountable for becoming a better man.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've signed on for that in the role. I've given them permission to do that in the role. And in that conversation, the gift of that becomes so tantalizing.
Yes.
It's amazing.
And if you're not prioritizing it, that's a huge miss. So in your 20s, if you think you want to lead someday, who are those individuals that quarterly you can just ask out to lunch? You can, these again, and you're going to have to find them. To your point, finding those trusted individuals, it's not like they just often just show up in our life. We have to really kind of have our eyes open. But over time, I have amassed this just team of individuals, whether it's a financial decision that I have to make, whether it's a health related decision I have to make, an accounting, a legal, a marketing, I've amassed this team of trusted partners. And sometimes they're thinking partners in my mind that it's unstoppable. I mean, I'm 52 and I've kind of built the team. And again, I'm not speaking with some of these folks for a couple months at a time, but they're there and they're valued and they're helpful. And
huge gift. That's a huge guy. As you're saying it, I'm thinking about those people and, early on in life, if you're young and you don't, or even if you're in leadership now and you don't know how to do that, you can look in your current world, people you've worked for, right? People that you respect,
Yep.
right? Start with those.
Yep.
Now, the next part of this has you get a little vulnerable,
Yes.
right? And you got to be able to, you got to turn off that part. I've got a guy in my head. We call him Fred.
Yep.
Fred's a jackass, right? And Fred in my head says, no, you got this. Don't ask him. Don't look stupid. You're right. You got to turn Fred off, and you got to be able to be vulnerable and go, hey, I'm not. And by the way, so a lot of those meetings that you're talking about, I don't necessarily walk in and just start vomiting on them.
Yeah.
I like you. I like the idea of a stroll, a lunch. I get, and you're right. There's different characters for different components that work real well.
100%. And ultimately what these people are doing, and this is the third one, these people are helping you learn. And there's two things that you have to learn when it comes to leadership. Two master, obviously there's many, but two kind of large umbrellas or buckets of content. So the first learning is about you as an individual. And you in your 20s and you're single is very different than you in your 30s with 2 kids and now a full-time job and a VP level position. So you're constantly, there's these opportunities in life for you to learn about yourself. Those thinking partners can really, really, really help you learn about yourself. But then if you want to lead, and I do a lot of posting on LinkedIn these days, Anthony. So every day at 8:30 a.m., I will post some type of leadership thought on LinkedIn. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. But a few weeks back, I posted this visual that said, great, now you're a leader. Well, here's all the things you need to now learn. You were an auto tech. You were a master carpenter. You were a physician. Awesome. Now you need to be an expert in negotiation, conflict management, problem solving, creative problem solving. Well, let's just go down the list of everything you need to now know. Building teams, designing culture, influence tactics, leadership styles, followership styles, attributes of effective teams. We can go down the list. And we have a lot of people who are in positions of leadership who couldn't tell you what great leaders do. And that's a problem. So if you think you want to lead, there's a great book, Everyday People, Extraordinary Leadership, or another book, The Leadership Challenge. There's these books that you can start to consume in your 20s. If you think you want to lead, are you beginning to learn the 5 dysfunctions of a team? Are you beginning to learn and start to consume some of that content so that by the time you lead, you have some level of expertise? And then you're never going to learn it all. Again, we are constantly, the game is kind of shifting and it's changing and the context around us. But are you a lifelong learner? Is it learning as a way of being? So again, I have these individuals I'm learning from. My wife and I walk every morning. I'm learning from her, but I'm listening to an audiobook right now, Patrick Lencioni, The Ideal Team Player. Yes. I'm listening to podcasts. I'm trying to become a better version of myself, even after studying this for 20 years. And I think, is that part of your repertoire? As you know, having this podcast has just systematized your learning in a beautiful way. Yeah. How are you going to systematize your learning? And are you really truly going to be an expert on the topic of leadership? You might know construction like the back of your hand. Awesome. Yep. That's cool. Or surgery. Cool. That's not the job anymore.
Right. It's that constant learning. And it's almost like if you don't, the repetitiveness of it. Because what I've noticed about it is all the information I'll learn, I'll read, I'll consume, I've become a constant learner, yeah. Which is one of my favorite gifts, right? Constant growth, always looking for that growth edge. It's kind of the work that I enjoy doing, trying things over. But what I notice is there are times when my brain picks up on something I may have heard a dozen times before. Yeah. Right? They're parts where you need that repetitive behavior and that repetitive nature of constant learning, that all of a sudden you're like, boom.
Well, sometimes, I don't know if you do this, but sometimes I'll read the same book over. Yeah. And it's like it's a different damn book. And so there's this concept called readiness to learn. Sometimes content is put in front of us, but we weren't ready for it, or we weren't in a position where it would resonate. It's kind of like watching a film and individuals holding their child. Well, if you haven't had kids, that part doesn't resonate the same way than if you've actually held your child for the first time and you're crying. That scene has a totally different meaning. So yes, 100%. I mean, I think that readiness to learn and that repetitive nature of just having it be a way of being. Am I constantly learning? And it doesn't have to be, I think sometimes when I say that, people think, oh, I'm not going to read like 1,000 books. No. Are you listening to 10 minutes of an audiobook a day? That's probably 30 audiobooks a year.
Yeah.
Just 10 minutes. Go on Libby, go to the library, rent some audiobooks. And you know what? It doesn't have to be a lot. I can learn a whole bunch in 70 minutes in a week, compounded by 52 weeks, compounded by 30 years. You're going to be pretty damn good. The problem is people don't carve out that 10 minutes, that 20 minutes, whatever it is your commute is. And I think it's a missed opportunity for you to be the best possible version of you. And yeah, I mean,
so for me, it's become part of a habit.
Yeah.
Right. Like, like in the morning, I wasn't a morning person always in my life.
Yeah.
Somewhere I broke that 4 a.m. wake up. I'm at the gym every morning at 5:30.
Wow.
My goal is to be there when the door opens. Right. Wow. There's a guy on the other side of the door that my whole goal is to be there when he's going to unlock the door.
Wow.
And there's something about that that wasn't there before, but now it's become part of a habit, right? Yeah. So now 5 or 6 days a week, I'm at the door when they're there. And it wasn't like where that line came over from having to do it to wanting to do it, right? When I miss it, I feel like, oh, I missed my morning work. There's something about just getting it done and feeling healthy that, clears the mind, and how I get to be as a man from there on out for the rest of the day became pretty cool. Yeah. And then I do some spiritual practices, which again, at 6:30. So I'm at 5:30, I'm working out. At 6:30, I'm doing a spiritual practice, and that gets me centered, right? Where I can get a little tuned in to wanting to be a better human being, right? I leave that spiritual practice wanting to bring light to the world as opposed to take light from people. And maybe, it's that part about me where it goes from about being about me, about how can I light other people's lives. And that was, all of a sudden who I get to, I'm human ready now, right? As a leader, yes. I'm human qualified. Cause, as you are a leader, like you said, the part about being a leader that no one ever gets is, and if you want to be a leader, I want you to get present to this. Nothing shows up in your office that's not on fire and full of broken glass. All those the easy stuff, people below you, other parts of the organization solve.
Yeah. By the time it gets to you,
it's on fire. It's broken. Your job is to solve the biggest problems in the company every day.
Yep.
Right. So the top 5 things that are a problem in the organization, your cash flow, your human beings, the breakdowns of places. They don't need you to go solve the day-to-day project stuff. They need you to solve the big breakdowns in the organization.
Yep.
And you got to be, going back to where you got to be ready to be in that space to show up there.
Well, and you just beautifully mentioned kind of the fourth of these 5, which is, are you building healthy habits? I'm not talking about perfection here, but again, if you're leading, you're a high performance athlete. You are. To get through the days that you're getting through, to model the emotional intelligence when you're getting triggered all day long by people and processes and clients and customers and whatever it is, you're a high performance athlete. And so your spiritual practice, whatever that means for you, I'm not putting any version. Who cares what it is? It could be mindfulness. It could be meditation. It could be Christianity. I don't care. But are you kind of whole in that space? Diet, that's another important piece of all of this from just a sustainability standpoint. Exercise, my wife and I walk every morning for an hour and we get outside, and that's part of our practice. That's just, it's wonderful to be outside at 5:30 in the morning
and
with
together.
my wife and together.
So it's health and relationship all in one breath.
We don't need to do a date night. We have a date walk every day.
Every day, right? Like that connected piece. Hey, Scott, I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to steal that from this podcast. That might be the gift of today's podcast, is that I walk out with the walk with my wife on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I love that practice. Great
It's like
practice.
6 wins.
Yeah.
And okay, I'm outside, that's a win. I'm on a walk, that's a win. I'm connecting with my wife, that's a win. That's our time for dreaming and visioning as well. Like we'll be like, okay, where should we go in December? And then we just talk and we're like, oh, we go to Costa Rica. Should we look at Belize? And so it's our time for kind of dreaming and visioning about what we're. It's also a problem solving time. So we do have all kinds of conversations about the kids. We have twin girls that are about to be 15. We have a 17-year-old. So there's just all of that. So it's our time for problem solving. So it's incredible. It's absolutely, it's multiple wins.
That might be the gift I'm taking. I'm just telling you, I'm stealing that. All right.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Because
Thank you.
we don't see enough people out there. And I think there's a lot of missed opportunities again. So are your habits, and by no means am I perfect when it comes to habits, by no means, but I'm trying. I'm trying to get better. I'm trying to improve. I'm trying constantly. This is one area where I've struggled my entire life to figure out the system to maintain my weight where I want it to be, to prioritize mental health, spirituality, navigating and managing stress. We are all fascinating case studies. None of us have arrived and none of us are perfect. But are you as healthy as possible? Or are you showing up hungover, not at your best, not eating well? And that's just going to show up in how you lead. That's just going to show up in how you lead. It just will. And it might not in the first 2 or 3 years, but after 7 years of that, it's going to show up in how you lead. And it's going to impact the team. So healthy habits.
And I, from where I stand, can look throughout the organization and I can see the healthy team leaders and how they affect their teams.
Yes.
I can almost go through the different groups in the organization.
Yep.
And I can see how they eat, right? I mean, the ones who are walking in their collective office and there's piles of candy and gum and here, I walked in their office the other day. There was 30% of the office was Monday morning sick. And and look, I don't know if there's always a direct correlation, but I could almost make a judgment and look and go, look, how does that affect our organization?
Yep.
Right? If we help create healthy human beings that have healthy behaviors, right?
Yep.
How they can bring their healthiest selves. How could me as a leader help support the healthiest parts of us?
Yes.
Right. And you know, my one is to inspire them to bring extreme health to the game. It's not something I paid attention to early on. My early days of being a leader was, let's go out drinking, let's go party. You know,
and the only reason you went to work out was so that you looked buff, so you could, you know. Right. But now there's a different purpose to the working out. There's a different purpose and a reason for that, and it's longevity and it's sustainability, and you know, hopefully all of these help you be a better human being. And so the last one I think we have to have an eye on is just character. Like, are you a person of character? Are you a role model? Are you someone others would want to look up to and model? And so I think all of these things can help you with the reading, the learning about self, the health, the motivations for leading. All of that can kind of lead to a person of character, which then is what makes it sustainable. Because you could have all of these things, but not have integrity or make decisions that probably may not be all that ethical. And again, by no means am I perfect. I have not arrived myself, but it's on my radar of how do I live with greater and greater levels of integrity so that I can be the best version of myself. And so if you kind of bring these 5 to the table, you're clear on why you want to lead, and you actually want to lead because you want to develop others. You're an individual who has a team of thinking partners who challenge you to be a better version of yourself. You're constantly learning not only about yourself, but about the activity of leading others. You have some healthy habits that help you be the best version of yourself. You're getting sleep. You're prioritizing sleep. And, you know, ultimately you're a person of character. You're a role model. And the goal, I think, for all of us, Anthony, is that people can, their heads hit the pillow and they say, wow, he was incredible. She was such a wonderful leader. I wish everyone was like her. I wish everyone was like him. And again, they weren't perfect, but generally speaking, this person did that work better than anyone else I've ever come across. You've had that teacher, you've had that coach somewhere along the way. Are you that leader for others? And if you are, you're going to have lower turnover. You're going to have higher levels of engagement. There's very real dollars associated with also some of what I've just said.
Well, Scott Allen, you are that light. You are the one who these practices, these principles that you bring to the table are some fundamental practices that I know we practice, right? Look, it's never perfection.
Nope.
It's progress, not perfection.
Yep.
Right. And I think that this is where, if people want to bring you in to be a coach for them, right? If they're looking for a great coach, someone who they can meet with a couple times a month, or someone who can come in and lead support their organization's growth, what's the best way for these people to get a hold of you and maybe bring you on to their team?
So the best way to get a hold of me is scottjallen.net, scottjallen.net. Or
we'll put that down below. We'll get it all connected down below.
Awesome. And then I'm on LinkedIn every day writing about leadership. So if you like what you've heard today, if you want more of that and kind of bite-sized little format, I've loved that platform, and I'm interacting with people from all over the world as well. And I'm learning every day. That's become, Anthony, kind of a part of my system of learning. There's some people I really, really respect. And again, it's a quick literally 25-second post that just flags me into a piece of content or a topic, and I'm learning. So that's another great place to get a hold of me as well.
Well, Scott Allen, we will make sure all of that's down below, all of your points of contact. If you guys heard something today that you thought inspired you, put that in the comments. Here, I want to hear more comments about what triggered you or what didn't trigger you, or if you have a thought on something that Scott talked about. Here, what are your practices? Yeah. What are the things that you're doing? What are the principles and practices that you're doing that are challenging your leadership, and give us some of that. And if you have some more ideas, bring that to the table. Put them in the comments down below. So that'd be great. Thank you, Scott. I'm grateful for having you on. Always, you are insightful. You are that bright light in my life and in many other people's lives. Grateful for you spending the time with us today.
Thank you, Anthony. So good to see you as always. Be well, sir.
Thank you. Hey, audience members, last week we broke 65,000 subscribers, 65,600 subscribers. Blew my mind. It's amazing what's going on out there. If you guys, but we noticed a bunch of you made it to the end of a podcast. There were some 32% of you last week that were not subscribers that made it to the end of a podcast. If you could take a second and just like and subscribe and do that now, I'd be so grateful. Alyssa and Joe and the team in the background that put the podcast together work tirelessly to find great guests like Scott on. And it makes all the difference in the world having that subscriber, being able to get great guests on. So if you could do that now for me, that'd be great. And as always, thanks for listening.